ותן למות רגלך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישכן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צלך, עליית ימינך. יומם כשמש לא יכך, וירח בלילה. אדוני שמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מידך ועד העולם.
Kol omer kra v'amar ma'ekra, kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashva bo. A voice says to cry out, but I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flower fades, when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. LeDavid mizmor l'Adonai ha'aretz umloa tevel v'yoshveva, ki hu al yamim yisada ve'al nahorot yichoneneha. The earth is the Lord's with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart. He will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. Scott had a dictionary, but it was a different dictionary than most other people, because his dictionary was missing certain words and phrases. For instance, the phrase, "it can't be done," could not be found in his dictionary. Words like impossible, unrealistic, don't try it, it won't be successful. Those are words that simply didn't appear in Scott Wolstein's dictionary. In fact, he liked to prove those words wrong as often as he could. Scott was a man of business who thought, though, like a creative artist, like a sculptor. He liked to nurture ideas, he liked to create ideas, invent ideas, and grow the idea. To conceive of an idea, to nurture it and develop it, that was Scott's high. That's what he was all about. He thought out of the box, and he wanted others to think out of the box with him. And what he was trying to do was not only building up buildings or companies, he was trying to build up Cleveland. He was looking to reinvent the city. His efforts were all part of a vision that he held of Cleveland. The best location in the nation is what he wholeheartedly agreed with, and he wanted to help that vision. Please don't misunderstand me if I quote from The Godfather. You know when they say it's not personal, it's business? With Scott, it was the opposite. It's not business. It was never only business. It was always personal. That was Scott. It was never only business. His projects, the working with people, the elevating of the city, it was personal. It was personal. He related to people personally. It's what gave him the passion and the drive. He would never fire anyone, right? He didn't want to fire anybody. Even if there were issues, he couldn't fire them. He's just personal. He had those beautiful, piercing, bold, big eyes. He had big, warm eyes, covered half his face. And his success in business was always part of relationships with people. Everything was about relationships. He always seemed like he was thinking and processing and assessing. Is it just me, or did his brain just seem larger than everybody else's? I don't know. And the forehead. He had charisma. He had passion. And that's what you noticed about him, Jillian, when you first met him, before you even dated. His passion and his energy at a Cleveland Force game, right? At a sports game. Before you even dated, you saw the incredible life that he had inside of him. Soccer team had the right name because Scott was a force in Cleveland and in your life. Not only did you have family together, not only did you have faith in him as a person, you admired him. You had fun together, but you admired him for the kind of person he was, for the kind of human being that he was. You both had a desire to contribute and a desire to excel. And you shared a number of each other's interests and helped each other, complimented each other, met each other halfway. You called him one of the smartest and finest human beings on the planet. Your kids refer to the idea that when you were walking, he'd be way ahead and you'd be way behind, and somewhere on the walk you'd meet in the middle. And that's how they thought of you. And you two remained connected and devoted to his last days. But as much as his work took him all over the world, and his learning and his training placed him in the finest schools, Scott remained a Cleveland boy who respected his parents, always respected his parents. Being a good son motivated Scott. His father, of course, was full of life. He went on trips with his dad, undoubtedly learned and watched his dad, loved his dad, found in his dad a mentor and a friend. Iris, you remember your home as the place where all the kids, all of Scott's friends, would gather, and that you and Bart and Scott and Cheryl would do many things together. Drive on vacation. I want to offer our condolences to Cheryl as well, Scott's sister, on your loss. But Iris, you recall that Scott was always a very good child growing up, easy to be with, easy to get along with, popular, sports star, but he also loved being at home with you. Never missed a game. He was a responsible person, a kind man. I know that being, quote, the best location in the nation is about Cleveland, and that Scott loved that description, but I will tell you, Harrison and Alana and Shelby and Merrick, I think you all felt that the best location in the nation for all of you was just being with your dad. Wherever your dad was, that was your best location in the nation. You loved your dad. And you knew he loved you. You knew he was a successful person of business. You knew he was a passionate man. He showed emotion. He may have even raised his voice from time to time. But you also knew he was a very sentimental man. Very sentimental, caring, feeling person. A thinking person. This was no absentee father or someone who was physically at the table but emotionally or mentally somewhere else. You knew he focused on you and he was thinking about you. You were at the top of his pyramid. He would arrange special days, quote unquote, where he could spend the time with each one of you. Special times to connect with him. You knew his mind was ever on you. He didn't miss your events. He didn't miss your accomplishments. He was present. He would hold up planes if necessary to be with you in the present. I experienced this myself with everything else he had going on in his life. When it came to your bar bat mitzvah ceremonies, if there were a breakdown in your schedule, if you were running late on a Wednesday afternoon for a bar mitzvah lesson or a meeting, I could call Scott in the middle of the afternoon, and he was on it to make sure you guys were there on time. It was not, hey, let's look for someone else to take care of it, or my assistant will do it. If you guys weren't there when you were supposed to be there, he was looking into it and getting back to me from a plane or from his office or in a meeting. He wanted to know, and he wanted it to work. It was a priority to him. And this happened several times, which just meant you guys were late a lot. But each time, he was on it. It mattered. It mattered. That's Scott. Things mattered to him. Things were important to him. You tell him it can't be done, and he'll show you that it can be done. You know what else mattered to him? Was that all of you would turn out to be down-to-earth people. That mattered to him. He told you you'd have to work hard. He told you things were not going to just be handed to you. He told you you can't just expect everything that you needed at once. He wanted you to be part of the purchases that you wanted. He wanted you to work hard and stick to your commitments, that you'd have to pull yourselves up and find the strength to do so. He wanted you to be a certain type of person. That mattered to him because he cared. And he had a softness that you loved. And your Judaism mattered to him. He told you that in your bar bat mitzvah year, there was going to be none of this going to the party and not to the service. You were going to go to the service when you were a guest and not just show up at the party. The service was the main thing. And you were sent to Jewish preschool for a good Jewish basis. And he was a history buff who wanted to study about the history of Judaism, the history of anti-Semitism. You knew of your dad that he would show patience and would accommodate others in order for people to get along. His Hebrew name, first name was Shalom, peace. He went out of his way at times so that there to be peace amongst family and friends. Iris, you said Scott had a curfew when he was under your roof, when he had to be home. But I will tell you, throughout his life, when it came to showing his kindness and his capacity to care, Scott had no curfew. That ran 24 hours. He enjoyed traveling and skiing and live music. He loved to host. He loved people getting along. He loved others having a good time. And I know one of his lessons to his family was about loyalty and honesty. Tell the truth and keep your word. Scott Wolstein's word mattered here in this city. He kept his word, whether it was down in the flats or in other physical spaces or in the legacy of so many friendships or in the respect he gave his parents or in his love for his family. In all of these things, Scott Wolstein kept his word, and it mattered to him. And of course, all of you kept your word as well, in caring for him and seeking him out, specifically during these last months when he needed care, and providing him with an atmosphere of love and comfort during these last days. You kept your word. He lived with a good name, and he died with a good name. We're going to call on a few additional statements. First, I'm going to call on Jillian.
Well, the unimaginable has happened, and we are all gathered here to honor the incredible, amazing Scott Wolstein, truly one of the finest humans on the planet. Scott and I were married for 19 years. I'm not sure how long we've been divorced because we still celebrated our anniversary. I run into people who are still surprised when they find out that we got divorced. Married or divorced, we remained co-parents, partners, best friends, and life partners. We might be one of the only divorcing couples who were actually built a vacation home together while we were getting divorced. We talked almost every day. In some ways, we grew even closer after we divorced. We faced some of our greatest challenges after, and we both knew without a shadow of a doubt that we were there for each other. Through thick and thin. It was my absolute honor to care for Scott these past 7 months, and through it, we became even closer. Scott was an iconic figure in Cleveland, huge personality, larger than life, but his priorities were very simple. Our children, who he was so proud of, Harrison, Alana, Shelby, and Merrick, Bubba, his dog, his mom, his friends, and his city. Those were his priorities. Complicated man, very simple in his priorities. Scott was generous beyond measure, brilliant, funny, devoted, compassionate, driven. He was the lifeline, call a friend in case of emergency for so many. He would answer your call no matter where he was in the world, and as Rabbi Scoff said, or where he was or who he was with, you could count on Scott answering your call. He never missed one of our children's events. He held up planes to see the end of a spring concert, changed meetings, canceled meetings to be at their sporting events. I was holding Scott's hand when he passed, playing our wedding song, Time of Our Lives. And it has far more meaning to me now than I would have ever liked to have imagined. I will never be the same. Our kids will never be the same. His friends will never be the same. And Cleveland will never be the same. I believe we are all better people, and I believe Cleveland is a better place because we all had the honor and privilege to be on this life journey with him, to have been blessed by his love, and to have been touched by his magic. My plot is next to his, and someday, not soon I hope, we will be reunited. My mom passed 11 weeks ago, and I told our kids we are developing quite the A-team of guardian angels. I know that your dad will continue to look out for us, to protect us, and to love us like he always did. None of us can imagine life without Scott, and we've had unbelievable, tremendous support from all of you through this, and I know that that will continue. The kids and I will carry on Scott's legacy, carry his name proudly, and honor him for the rest of our lives. So I could be up here for days if I was going to say everything that was in my heart, but I'm going to end it with, I'm going to paraphrase from something that Alana had sent me. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Life means all that it ever meant. It's the same as it ever was. What is death but an inexorable accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere, very near, just round the corner. All is well. I love you, Scott, and I will miss you for the rest of my life.
Scott Wolstein. Some may recognize his name and know him as a very successful businessman or visionary, but I've been honored to know him simply as Dad. I know him as the guy who never missed a single event of his kids, whether it be a school recital, a t-ball baseball game, a fashion show, or anything important to us. He never missed anything. Even if this meant he had to fly home from an important business trip, move meetings around, whatever he had to do for his family, he just did it. My father had a wonderful and an amazing way of making each of us feel so very incredibly special. One of his traditions with each of us was something called a special day. He would pick a day and take each of us separately on our own day so that we each had his undivided attention, knowing that was difficult while he was running a business and with a wife and 4 kids. My dad was my best friend, my guide, and my mentor. He always and tirelessly supported me in whatever I wanted to do, often with few questions asked. Mostly because he always just wanted me to be happy and genuinely love what I'm doing. I was very blessed to have a father who let me be myself accepted me for who I am, and truly wanted me to live my life authentically and unapologetically. He gave me this gift. How wonderful to have a father who was always there for me and answered every question, no matter what time of day or what the question was. And believe me, I had a lot. For those very close to my father, you know this. My dad had many amazing, strong qualities. However, he was also an incredibly sensitive and compassionate person. He was always helping someone with whatever it may be, whether it be a letter of recommendation, helping someone find a job, lending someone advice, or simply giving to those in need. And for our family, my dad always made sure we were all taken care of at all times, and for that, I am forever grateful. One thing he said to us on Father's Day a year ago was this. The most important thing I will ever accomplish in my life is to father great children who will perpetuate my legacy and make me proud. I could not be more proud of the young adults you have become. You are all very different, but all amazing in your own way. Dad, I could not be more proud to be your son, and I hope I can live up to be half of the amazing man you were. You always just wanted to be loved, and I hope you knew how incredibly loved you are by so many. I love you so much, always will, and I will miss you every day. You were a pillar of strength in my life, in our family, and a pillar in your city. So many things I will greatly miss. I will miss your yelling during sporting events. I will miss our daily phone calls and hourly texts. I will miss you calling me up just to say hi and see how I was doing, and if I simply just wanted to meet up. I will miss your incredible punctuality. I will miss your jokes, your insanely loud sneezes. I'll miss fighting with you over music. I will miss your infectious smile, your beautiful eyes, but most of all, I will simply just miss you. I know you fought so hard for us, and although you were taken from us much too soon, and I truly don't know what I'm going to do without you physically here with us, what I do know is you will always be with me in my heart, forever guiding me, cheering me on from the sidelines, or in the crowd like you always have been. I'll always be your buddy. I will always carry you in my heart. And we will always be the dynamic duo. I love you.
First, I want to thank everyone for being here to honor my father. I will not be shy in admitting how much I dislike public speaking, but only because I know my dad didn't like it either. He did it a lot, but he didn't like it. But here goes, or as he would say, come on, sports fans. On November 8th, I received a text from my dad saying, just landed in Newark. I have about a 6-hour layover. If you're free, I can come meet you in Manhattan for a late lunch or early dinner. Known as many things, my dad was rarely described as patient. He appreciated efficiency and convenience as much as anyone, something I definitely inherited for better or worse. Yet on November 8th, he was willing to leave New Jersey, cross state lines, sit in traffic on the way into the city, sit in traffic on the way out of the city, and go back through airport security just to spend a single hour with me. I didn't think much of it at the time, but in hindsight, that pretty much sums up what kind of father my dad was. Over the years, I always did my best to say yes to these frequent impromptu invitations from my dad, often canceling plans or ditching the office in exchange for a drink or a meal with him. He'd always tell me to invite some friends, which I always loved to do. I have countless memories of my dad with my friends, and I loved being around him as much as he loved being around us. But for whatever reason, this time I didn't say yes. I had a busy work day, and since I was working from home due to COVID, I didn't think I could make it into Manhattan from Brooklyn in enough time. He responded, "No worries, just a last-minute idea." I remember saying to myself, "It's fine, I'll be home for Thanksgiving in a couple weeks, and we'll see him then." If only I knew. If I had any regret during this whole nightmare, it is that I said no to meeting up with him that day. Maybe I would have noticed something was off. Would it have changed anything? Probably not. He already had stage 4 melanoma and several tumors in his brain, lungs, and abdomen. But I would have had one last normal meal in New York City with my dad, and that would have been priceless. 9 short days later, on November 17th, 2 days before I was supposed to fly home for the holiday, I learned firsthand how fragile life is and received the worst phone call of my life. My mom tearfully told me that my dad had a fall. The MRI showed he had several brain tumors, and he would be going in for emergency brain surgery as soon as possible. Time seemed to stop in that moment. I was pacing around my apartment, devastated and terrified, but was hopeful that my dad would be able to pull through this terrible diagnosis. I dropped everything and flew home immediately in the morning of November 18th and left his side very few times since. On Thanksgiving Day, things took a turn, and a bleed in my dad's brain led to stroke-like symptoms, impairing his speech and mobility on top of the battle he was already facing against aggressive melanoma. These new ailments left my dad in constant need of an advocate, and my family and I became his voice to push for whatever would keep him comfortable and help him beat this disease. We knew that it was going to be a very long road to recovery, but still, I truly believed he would make it through. I honestly didn't even consider any other outcome, and I was determined to help make it a reality for him. The morning after every night that he spent in the hospital, the first thing I would do when I woke up was check the results from his nightly blood test, or as I started calling them, the Scott market, which I knew he would appreciate and gave me the same stress that he had when he looked at the stock market. In what felt like a crash course in medicine, I would make sure all the numbers were going in the right direction, cross-referencing with the results from the day before, and if something seemed off, would bring it up to his care team so nothing ever fell through the cracks. I felt like if I tried hard enough, I really could get my dad better. Cancer had other plans. But for a while, we did get him better. Little by little, my dad regained his strength, and we finally got him to rehab and eventually back home for 5 weeks. It was the honor of my life to be there for my dad, especially during those 5 weeks at home. While not without its challenges, there were so many happy moments in those 5 weeks, and my dad kept his famous sense of humor through it all. For example, anyone who knows my dad knows that he likes to be clean-shaven all the time. So when he got home, I lovingly did my best to give him the closest, cleanest shave I could without cutting him. But no matter how many times I went over it, it was never good enough. He teased me about it for days, randomly just starting to count the hairs that I missed when we're sitting at the table. 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't belong here. I'm like, okay, whatever. It made me laugh every time. Needless to say, it wasn't long until I handed that duty off to Harrison and my dad's loyal caregiver, Ashley. While at home, he got great quality time with his family and friends who came to visit, and he had many sweet moments with his beloved dog, Bubba. He watched lots of Schitt's Creek, got to eat his favorite foods. We got him outside, and he still laughed out loud at his own jokes, even though no one else could understand them. But his laugh was contagious, so we all laughed with him anyway. I could never tell if he thought we were laughing at his jokes or if he knew we were just laughing because he was laughing. I hope he thought we were laughing at his jokes, because I know that would have made him feel good. Despite the challenges with his speech, there were a couple phrases he was always able to say while he was home. The ones I remember most are, "I love you," "You're the best," "I'm sorry," and pretty much any combination of curse words. He never had trouble with the curse words throughout the whole thing. After seemingly everything was taken from him instantly, his mobility, his ability to communicate, his overall health, his future, he woke up every day and found something to laugh about. That is something I will carry with me forever, and I will always be grateful for those 5 weeks. I eventually took my dad to get his first immunotherapy treatment on March 10th, a milestone we weren't sure we were ever going to reach. The potential side effects were plentiful, but it was our only shot at getting the cancer under control. Unfortunately, my dad's body couldn't handle this strong medication, and after returning to the hospital a week later on March 18th, he didn't arrive back home until May 19th, this time under hospice care. My dad was invincible in my eyes, and to see him this way was extremely disorienting. It broke my heart and confused my mind. But somehow, I had never been prouder to be my dad's daughter. He took the challenge head on and fought as hard as he possibly could. Well, I know I will miss my dad every single day for the rest of my life. When I sit down and think about it, the most overwhelming feeling I had felt over the past couple weeks, more than sadness, more than despair, more than frustration, is gratitude. I mean, how lucky am I to have had Scott Allen Wolstein as my dad? The coolest, most fun, smartest, most dedicated dad to ever have the job. He gave me the world and always made sure I knew he was proud of me. Besides more time, what else can a kid ask for? I'm also extremely grateful that I not only was able to be by his side for this fight, but I also got a lot of quality time with him in the couple years before he got sick, moving home and lived with him for extended periods during COVID. I was recently speaking to a family friend who experienced her own devastating loss, and she cited a past conversation that made me think. If I had the choice, had I known when I was born that I would only have my father for 31 years, would I have chosen differently? Unsurprisingly, my answer to myself was a resounding no. I would, without question, choose my dad every single time. Regardless of the everlasting pain and deep, sometimes debilitating sadness I know I'll feel as a result of this unfathomable loss, it is clear to me that the gaping hole that he has left in my life will never overtake the 31 years of love, lessons, and memories that surround it. While there will be milestones and moments that I won't get to have with my dad, I have tried to remind myself that I have been blessed to do and see many special things with him that very few people ever experience at all, let alone with their fathers. Seeing the northern lights in Alaska, stepping foot on Antarctica, wine tasting in Tuscany, climbing sand dunes in Namibia, and of course bringing friends to his table at various nightclubs are just a few that come to mind off the top of my head. When I tell people about my dad, I will boast of his many accomplishments, but mostly I will focus on the kind of person he was. Generous with his time, his resources, his energy, his humor, his love, very sensitive, but also strong and pragmatic. A man of his word, reliable, loyal, and brilliant. To know him truly was to love him. This is illustrated best in some love letters I recently found that he saved from his exes in the 80s. What I gathered from these letters was that somehow my dad was so charming and so genuine that even when he was breaking up with someone, they somehow ended up thanking him. How he managed that, I'm not entirely sure. But what was clear is that they all seemed to feel lucky to have experienced his affection, regardless of how brief, and they weren't shy in letting him know that. My friends joke that I'm a little too nostalgic. Some even go so far to say as I live life in the past lane, which I have realized was definitely an inherited trait from my dad. My dad saved everything. Every Father's Day card, every drawing we made him, every thank you note. I'm so grateful for that, as each one is now a gift, written proof that I told my dad how amazing he was and how proud I was to be his daughter. I've also been going back and reading my old texts and emails with him. While I have many gripes with technology and its effects on our world, its ability to remember moments and conversations I would have otherwise forgotten is something I appreciate deeply. It has gifted me transcripts of our conversations and the sound of his voice in the form of voicemails. Most of them are just a variation of, "Hi Alana, it's Dad, sorry I missed your call." But the gift of being able to hear him say my name whenever I need it is something I will turn to often. Among many kind words said to my dad that he had shared with us over the years, I found an email he shared in 2010 from a Cleveland councilman. It was a beautiful note recounting his daughter's first experience driving by the Flats East Bank project. The end of the letter read, "With everything, all I know is this. Cleveland's better because you're in it and because you give a shit and because you have the chutzpah to do the hard work. Goodbye yesterday and today. My daughter says thanks for tomorrow, Scott." So I too reluctantly say goodbye to yesterday and today, the 31 years I have had the gift of spending with my father on this earth. But I also join this councilman in thanking my dad for tomorrow. Dad, it's because of you that I'm confident I will lead a beautiful life, one filled with endless fun, family, lifelong friends, adventures, travel, and of course, plenty of wine. I promise to never forget my Cleveland roots, the city you are so proud of, that instilled great values in me and gave me some of my best friends. I promise I will take care of myself, and I promise that I will be okay, as I know the happiness and comfort of your family was always the primary motivation behind everything you ever did. I recently asked a friend who lost her father if I would be sad forever. She said yes and no, and she paused. "It becomes a superpower," she said. "I know I will often draw upon this new superpower, an elixir of your strength, your intellect, your compassion, your wisdom, and your love to see myself through every decision I have to make without you. And if I'm ever lucky enough to find that special guy, I will try my best not to be sad that you didn't get a chance to meet him. Because if he does come along, I will be fairly certain that he was handpicked and brought into my life by you. I know it will be hard, but I also know deep down that you will be with me every step of the way, and just like you've always been. There's no better feeling in the world than being introduced as Scott Wolstein's daughter. And I know that no matter the distance between us, I will always have that. Dad, I hope whatever comes after this life is bigger, better, and most importantly, full of sunshine. You have earned nothing less. I will love you and miss you until I see you again. So goodbye for now, yesterday and today, and thank you for tomorrow, Dad.
Merrick mentioned our special days, and I didn't write this because this happened this morning, but the shoes I wanted to wear are a little too big. And when we would go on our special days and I got too old for the kid rides but wasn't tall enough for the adult rides, my dad would stuff my shoes so I could ride the big rides. And today I had to stuff my shoes so they didn't fall off my feet. Thank you all for coming. He'd be really excited by how many of you are here. And he'd also point out any empty seats. I might be biased, but my dad was the smartest man I've ever known. Like, annoyingly smart. And he's stubborn too, which is a tricky combination. He had an answer for everything. No matter the question, he had an answer. Whenever I was unsure or confused, he was always the first person I could turn to. It was like I had a cheat sheet to the world. So much so that often when I called him, he would answer the phone saying, "I have a question," because I almost always did. And without fail, he had an answer. And then a few minutes later, a few articles telling me why his answer was correct, and then a couple days later, a check-in to see that he was, in fact, right. But he was never dismissive or short. He offered thoughtful, long answers and checked in to make sure I had learned something. While I was living in Chicago, I once lost my wallet. I've never lost my wallet before, but I knew the drill. Cancel your cards, get a new license, blah, blah, blah. But just before I went to cancel my credit cards, I realized I had no idea how I would get anywhere. My train card was in my wallet, my Uber and Lyft were attached to the cards I was about to cancel, bike shares would cost money. So I did the same thing I've done my whole life, and I called my dad for advice. I started the call assuring him I wasn't a moron. I knew I had to cancel my cards, blah, 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 but how do I get around in the meantime? My dad launched into a 45-minute step-by-step guide of the next 5 days of my life. From that moment until my cards came in the mail, he gave me a guide. It involved cashier's checks and passports, and it was long and it was detailed, and I had to take notes. At the end of the call, he said, "You got all that?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he said, "Okay, let me know if you have any questions. By the way, the other option, I'm in Chicago if you need any money." He was much more interested in making sure I could handle it myself and offering a quick fix. But of course, I chose option B. I walked to his office and I took the cash. He didn't raise an idiot. Every moment of uncertainty, I have always been able to call my dad, to pull out that cheat sheet and find the right answer. Now, moving forward without him, feels a lot like walking into a test I didn't study for. I lost my cheat sheet. My dad was more than just my dad. In my adult life, he also became my buddy. Over the years, my dad and I started talking almost every day, especially in basketball season. He would text me with a trade proposal he hated or a stat line from a player we didn't draft performing well, so we were stupid for not taking them, or a stat line from a player we did draft performing poorly, so we were stupid for taking them, or a score of a game where we did well, so never mind about the other two things. We would go back and forth speculating on trades and drafts and playoffs and prospects. Every day, just a quick chat. When my dad lost his ability to communicate, I realized how big a role in my life those conversations played. How instinctual it had become to text my dad to chat about the newest trade or a recent game. It's still my knee-jerk, and I don't think that'll go away. I've missed those conversations these last 7 months, and I will sincerely miss them for the rest of my life. Being my father's daughter meant a lot of things, but one thing I'm internally grateful for is that he instilled the sense that everything was possible. No matter what I told him I wanted to do, I can't remember any instance in which he told me no, except for the WNBA, which he said I just didn't have the height for. He never, typo. He never said I couldn't do something, and he never said that outright either. In fact, it was never something I even noticed until recently, but my dad made sure I knew I could achieve anything I set my mind to. If I worked hard and I stayed the course, he made me believe I could do anything. I could tell my dad that I wanted to go to the moon, and he would tell me, well, for starters, you gotta pick your grades up. No matter the dream or the goal or the idea, there was always a way. It might take some work, but it's never impossible, and he would do whatever he could in the meantime to help. When I told him I thought I wanted to pursue comedy writing, he didn't laugh or tell me to be more practical. He told me to get started, and then he told me his favorite Seinfeld jokes. When my dad got sick, there was so much I wanted to talk to him about. When he lost his speech, I felt like I'd been robbed of 7 months of conversations that we could have had. A lot of things will go unsaid, but somehow he found a way to maintain his sense of humor. We laughed a lot, we joked around, and we made some really great memories. My dad also maintained a lot of what his speech therapist called automatic speech, things that didn't require much thought. My dad hung on to a few things. Most were curse words. Many were curse words, most were curse words, but he said Bubba's name too. And he said, I love you, and how much he loved his kids. And that was his automatic speech, the things he could say without thinking too much. And I think that speaks volumes. It's a hollow feeling knowing that he won't get to see what I do next, that everything I do moving forward will have an empty space for him. I love my dad, and I'm so proud of the impact he has had on everyone in this room and the entire city of Cleveland. His desire to impact the people around him drove everything he did, and I hope he knew just how much impact he had. I won the lottery by getting to be my father's daughter. Unfortunately, most lottery winners can't hang on to their winnings as long as they'd like. I'm so proud to be my father's daughter, and I'm so glad I also got to be my father's friend.
All right. I've got the pleasure of cleanup duty after all of those amazing speeches. Unfortunately, I inherited the I hate public speaking trait from my dad as well. And I also inherited the trait where we both cry a lot. So we'll see how this goes. But thanks everyone for coming, especially under these COVID circumstances. We're very grateful we're at least able to have the funeral. It wasn't that long ago that many families were not so lucky. So thanks so much for coming. It means the world. It's been a brutal ride since November, and I want to especially thank those who helped the family by bringing food, giving rides, helping with the pets, advising on various issues, whatever it was. We've been so blessed to have an amazing support network, and it truly means the world. I also want to specifically thank my mom and my sister Alana, who stood by him day and night as he fought through the toughest battle of his life. Each of you will have your own thoughts and fond memories of my dad to sustain you in the years to come. His legacy to each of us will be these memories of his special goodness that brought out the best in each of us, and our lives are all better for having known my dad. As I wrote this, I thought about if I could go back in time to my favorite memory with Dad, where would I go? Grilling and laying outside by the pool, in the sun, skiing in Colorado, one of our family trips to Africa or Alaska, the double overtime 2002 Miami Ohio State Fiesta Bowl, the Cavs championship run, camping in the woods on my birthday and then running back home, me and all my friends behind him as we ran through the biggest thunderstorm in years. There's just too many memories to count. But as I thought about it, one stood out with a certain glow. It would have been one specific special day with Dad. On this specific special day, where else would you go as a kid in the 90s but jog a lake? Hey bud, my dad said to me, and I came running down the stairs. We jump in the car, off we go. No stress, no business, nothing serious, nothing but good, clean fun. At some point during the day, we took an ice cream break. Trying to make light conversation, I turned to my dad and I said, Dad, what will happen when you die? Unwittingly, I'd clearly struck a sensitive note as the guy sitting near my dad turned to him like he might cry. It had clearly impacted my dad as well. Thinking quickly on his feet and relating one of life's hardest subjects in terms a 6-year-old would understand, my dad said, remember what Mufasa told Simba in The Lion King? Look at the stars. The great kings of the past look down on us from those stars. So whenever you feel alone, just remember that those kings will always be there to guide you, and so will I. Okay, I said, fine with that answer. If it was in The Lion King, it was fine with me, and it was clear that Dad would be with me forever. The details could be sorted out later. I had games to play and rides to ride. Turns out, nearly 30 years later, here I am asking myself the same question. Dad, what will I do now that you're gone? Although I've had 7 months from his diagnosis to reflect on this, it's something that's impossible to prepare for. My father was an incredible man and an incredible father. He loved to provide and take care of his family, and he's someone that this family simply cannot replace. When I came home from New York City to ride out COVID, my dad told me I could live in the old house that hadn't sold yet. He went right to work making a list of essentials. A couple plates, a couple glasses, some silverware, a wine opener, and a couple bottles of wine. Good to go. Garbage bags, toilet paper, soap, and all the rest were non-essential. As long as there was wine, I'd be good. After my belated birthday dinner, we drove to the house, and he was thrilled to pull up the for sale sign and chuck it in the garage. I'll never forget that smiling glow in his face. A moment where he could provide for his son just meant the world to him and truly made him happy. A life is full of ups and downs, and my dad's life had lots of amazing ups. I watched him lead a public company, reinvent the flats with my grandmother, travel the world, immerse himself in philanthropy, and win awards. He was in the paper, he was on the local news, he even made it onto CNBC a couple times. Beyond his personal accomplishments, he had many interpersonal accomplishments. He took a genuine interest in younger people's careers, freely offered his time, help, and advice. He formed strong and lasting friendships and met so many amazing people the world over. If you think my dad was just a guy with a crazy temper, that's the sign you didn't really know my dad. Those who knew my dad know that beneath the temper was a sincere benevolence and an unwavering moral compass, true integrity and goodness. Most importantly, he raised and provided for a full, lively family of 4 children, and he worked very hard at doing so. Whenever he'd pick me up from Little League or take me to school in the morning in his black BMW, license plate, Scott, he was always on the phone, listening to messages, taking calls, always doing his very best to grow the business and provide for his family. I was so enamored with my dad and the way he conducted business. I always wanted to be on the other end of those phone calls, holding my father's attention and respect. Everything I've ever done has been to make my father proud. I've always been so proud of my dad for all he accomplished, but I gotta say, even more than being proud of the ups, I'm most proud for how he handled the downs. In 2008, DDR and many other large real estate and financial institutions suffered a near financial collapse, and although my dad took a significant personal financial hit, he worked tirelessly to save the company he, my grandfather, and grandmother built together. All of this was happening at the same time he had just started building his over-the-top new home. Some of you may know it affectionately as Club W. At the same time, he was going through a divorce, and with all of this, and after all of his efforts to save DDR from collapse, he was forced to step down. Any one of those things could have pushed a man to the brink, and I could see all of this took its toll on my father. But he kept fighting. He kept getting up every day, making calls, figuring things out, fighting until finally he landed on his feet with a great job as CEO of Starwood Retail. Unfortunately, after leading several significant acquisitions, the force and power of e-commerce changed the shopping center and mall business forever. My dad parted ways with Starwood and was back to searching for new opportunities. To this day, his former colleagues compliment him for his intellect and tenacity in the force of uncontrollable headwinds. Eventually, my dad saw an opportunity in the Puerto Rican shopping centers owned by DDR and was determined to raise capital to buy them back. He chased the deal relentlessly for 3 years until finally, in August of 2021, the deal closed. And I can honestly say this may have been the happiest I'd ever seen my dad in my entire life. Tragically, the biggest fight of his life was just ahead. In November of 2021, my father was diagnosed with stage 4 mucosal melanoma in his brain, lungs, abdomen, and adrenal glands. And soon after, on Thanksgiving Day, he suffered a brain tumor hemorrhage, causing him to lose his ability to speak. For my dad, always the smartest guy in the room, always opinionated and thoughtful, to lose his ability to speak was absolutely catastrophic. After some hard work at therapy, the most ingrained and important words came back first. The F word, the S word, bull S word, effing bull S word, piece of S word, effing piece of S word, and all the usual suspects. He suffered through months at the hospital and rehab centers, scan after scan, shot after shot, constant interruptions, EKGs, ECGs, multiple intubations, a tracheotomy, and the list goes on. My dad never ever gave up. In fact, some of my favorite memories of my dad were moments spent at the hospital. When he had to trade his power suit for a hospital gown and his cell phone for a nurse pager, he softened. All he could do was love and be loved. The screams of curse words changed to literal screams of I love you. The guy who used to hate FaceTime would absolutely glow with joy whenever we called. We shared great laughs, watching movies, laughing, fist bumping as I translated his needs to the nurses. Despite his lack of ability to talk, he maintained his charisma and became everyone's favorite patient. Beyond that, I can confidently say we had some of our most meaningful conversations in the hospital. Cancer brought us to a place where things left unsaid for years were said. We forgave, we hugged, we told each other how much we love each other. My dad managed to turn one of the most horrific experiences imaginable into one full of good memories. He fought and fought and fought and made something out of it, like he always did in life, until the very end. As we all stand here to say goodbye, we can honor my dad by celebrating his life among us and the privilege we've had of sharing it with him. And as I stand here wondering, Dad, what will I do now that you've died? As I navigate life's up and downs, finding my way in the circle of life, I'll remember what you told me at Jogga Lake. I won't see you at my wedding, but you will be there. My future children will never meet you, but you'll be there. I'll look to you, Dad, my North Star. You show me the way to always do the right thing, even when it hurts. To take care of and provide for those I love, to have fun and to laugh, to work hard, to be kind, and to fight until the very end. I love you, and I'll miss you for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Let's rise for the memorial prayer.
Amen. ומהלות קדושים הטובים, כזול הגרתי המטבעי, את נשמת שלום אברהם, שהלך בעולמו, בגן עדן וגיא מנוחתו. הרחמים, אזכירנו בסדר כנף יחדהו אלוהים, ובתצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני ונחלתו, וינוע בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר
May we remember all of the worthy deeds that he performed in the land of the living. God is now his portion. May he rest in peace. And we all say amen. Let's be seated. We want to offer our condolences to the family, Harrison, Ilana, Shelby, Merrick, Jillian, Iris, Cheryl, and Eugene. Family will be receiving visitors beginning tomorrow, 2 to 6 p.m. That's at the Wolstein Residence, 14398 County Line Road in Chagrin Falls, 14398 County Line Road in Chagrin Falls, 2 to 6 tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. We're now, I'm sorry. Oh, no. Okay, good. Friday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Friday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, 2 to 6 at the Wolstein Residence in Chagrin Falls. We're going to pause in the service now to arrange the processional that will lead us to the burial spot, and that's going to be at Lakeview Cemetery. Please remain in your seats, but the pallbearers should now come forward.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Roi Lo Atzar, Binoteshi Arbiteni, Almeimin Ufot Yinhalin, Nafshi Yishovev, Yancheni B'magle Tzedek L'man Shemo. Gam ki elech L'gates Al-Mavet, Lo Ira Ra Ki Ata Imadi. Shiftacha U'mishantecha, Hema Yinachavoi. Ha'aroch L'fanai Shulchan Megas Torah.
On behalf of the family, we thank you for sharing